Tulsi Gabbard, she hasn't been in the news for quite a bit, but she's back in the news now, and not for good reasons. It appears that Tulsi Gabbard has been placed on a domestic terrorist watch list. I kid you not. Pretty interesting considering that Tulsi Gabbard is someone who is vocally pro-Israel and vocally Islamophobic. She tried to pretend like she's not, but she is. She is. She's always been that way as long as I can remember. And yet now she is on a domestic terrorist watch list. She is blaming the Biden administration for this one. Ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your seats. It's a doozy out here. Let's go ahead and bring in this clip. We have two clips about this particular issue. We're going to start off first with the Fox News clip.
So what exactly did Tulsi Gabbard do to get added to the terror watch list? It came the day after she criticized the Biden administration right here on The Angle.
Our foreign policy decisions are being made by unelected people in the military-industrial complex who are profiting from us being in a constant state of war, and the national security state that has more power to undermine our freedoms and liberties when we are in a state of war. Kamala Harris does not have the strength to stand up to the military-industrial complex.
Pause. Okay. Just based on that statement that Tulsi Gabbard made there alone, do you think that is enough to put her on a domestic terrorist watch list? I've seen other people make those same statements. Or it could be the fact that Tulsi Gabbard was a former congresswoman. It also could be the fact that she was a former congresswoman who basically ended Kamala Harris's presidential hopes in the past by talking about her record on the debate stage. It could be because of that, combined with her being a congresswoman, combined with the speech that she just gave there. Or do you think it is something else? Let's continue here.
Okay, that's wild. Joining me now, Tulsi Gabbard, former U.S. Congresswoman, Fox News contributor. Tulsi, now, you serve this country in uniform, even getting deployed to Iraq. Thank you for going, unlike Tim Walz. And now you're being surveilled. I mean, it's a form of surveillance or hassling and intrusion upon your freedom to move by the government. What is this? I mean, I didn't believe it, really, when I first heard about it. I said, oh, that can't be. But how does this make you feel?
So let's remember, folks, another reminder, Tulsi Gabbard is active duty military, right? So imagine being active duty military and you're calling out the military industrial complex, right? So that's the double whammy too. But that's not the first time that she has done that. I've heard Tulsi Gabbard speak about this before in the past. Why now?
Laura, this is a clear act of political retaliation. There's no other way to put it. You laid out the sequence of events the very next day after my conversation with you on the air, warning the American people about how dangerous a Kamala Harris presidency would be. I was placed on this domestic terror watch list, which is called the Quiet Skies list under the Department of Homeland Security. The clear pain and real visceral hurt that comes from this is, as you mentioned, like many Americans, I enlisted because of the terrorist attacks on 9/11 to go after the Islamist terrorists who attacked us on that day, and to now have my own government now turn around and put me on a domestic terror watch list. It hits to the core and is the ultimate sense of betrayal. But we look at why they are doing this. It has a chilling effect. It sends a warning both to me and to anyone else who even thinks about daring to criticize our own government, which is a guaranteed protected right under the First Amendment.
Yeah.
That we will be subject to a violation of our Fourth Amendment right to privacy through this kind of surveillance. And that's the biggest stress that's been caused by this entire situation, Laura, is now forever. I will always be looking over my shoulder, wondering if and how our government in any of these different agencies is surveilling me, watching me. Are they reading my text messages? Are they listening to my phone calls?
Did Tulsi Gabbard have that same response when this was happening to students that were protesting against the genocide in Gaza? Some of those students that were put on list, thanks to people like Bill Ackman, some of those students that were put on lists and they were told, do not hire these students. students that were put on lists that said that these students need to be targeted? Did she have that same type of response when people lost their job because they were criticizing the state of Israel? So you see, this is something I want you guys to think about here for a second, because I think now Tulsi Gabbard is getting a little bit of a taste of her own medicine, because she was one of the most vocal people that was saying, I've been telling everybody that these people in the United States are becoming radicalized by Islam and we need to shut it all down. Miss Pro-free speech, Miss In the Wars, Tulsi Gabbard, who I saw speak at the Rage Against the War Machine rally. She all of a sudden, it turns when it's about Israel versus when it's about Russia and Ukraine and other countries as well. But once it became about Israel, she wanted to censor people. She wanted people to be doxxed. She approved of that. She was okay with that. She was okay with people being watched. She was okay with, yeah, let the government surveil them, let do all those things. We need to stop this from happening, do whatever we can to protect Israel. She was totally fine with that. But now it's happening to her. And this is why I say that when it comes to censorship, when it comes to pro-free speech, it shouldn't just be about the free speech that you agree with. Tulsi Gabbard was against the speech and the rhetoric that the protesters were saying during the pro-Palestinian encampments and protests out in the streets. She was on Fox News multiple times criticizing it. She criticized it multiple times on her Twitter account. She did not want it said. She was totally fine with shutting them down. But now people are trying to shut her down. And you know what's weird and crazy? She supported and defended Israel. Full stop. Full stop. She spoke out against Islam over and over and over and over again. And they still put her ass on a domestic terrorist watch list. What does that tell you, ladies and gentlemen? Let's continue.
Yeah, I was going to say yes, yes, and yes. That's what I would guess, at least. Now, in a letter from whistleblower attorney Tristan Levitt, he writes that the special mission coverage in Ms. Gabbard's case reportedly involves 2 explosive detection canine teams, 1 transportation security analyst in explosives, 1 plainclothes TSA supervisor, and 3 federal air marshals on every flight Ms. Gabbard boards. I mean, I'm not laughing, Tulsi, because this is literally like the Soviet Union, China today, North Korea, any totalitarian regime. But Donald Trump's the totalitarian, right? He's the dictator in waiting. Okay.
Yeah.
See, now Tulsi Gabbard knows how Scott Ritter feels, right? How Scott Ritter feels to be pulled off planes, have his home raided by the FBI, which that one just happened recently. Now she knows how he feels. Now she knows how some of the protesters feel. And I'm not just talking about pro-Palestinian protesters. I'm talking about BLM too. Some of those protesters that protested during BLM were never seen or heard from again. Now she knows how these people feel. She may not have agreed with what they were protesting about, but they still had a right to do it.
This is just, and this is what we know about, and we know about it because of these brave whistleblowers from the Air Marshal Service who are coming forward. What I'm questioning is, what are the things that are happening in our government that I don't know about? How long have they been surveilling me? This is just a recent occurrence. I would not be surprised to know that there are other government agencies who are also being weaponized against political opponents, those who dare to challenge this regime, the Biden-Harris administration.
I think it goes back further than that, Tulsi. Colin says same as Uhuru, 100%. I think it goes back further than that. She wants to know how long have they been surveilling her. I don't know. This might go all the way back to the Hillary Clinton days, Tulsi. This might go back all the way back to when Tulsi Gabbard decided not to endorse Hillary Clinton and endorse Bernie Sanders. Because after that, her career in the Democratic Party as I guess like any type of Democrat leadership, because she was supposed to be tapped to be the next big thing, that was over. After she decided, I'm going to endorse Bernie Sanders and not Hillary Clinton, Hillary and the Democratic Party were done with her. And then even after that, she still decided to run for president through the Democratic Party. And then she tore down their queen. She tore down their future, woman of color queen. Cause that's what we gonna call they were really wanting Kamala Harris because they were like, oh, she checks off all the boxes. She's a woman and she's a woman of color. And you know how Democrats can go over that sometimes. Then she tore down Kamala Harris, who was definitely supposed to be tapped to be their next queen, and ruined Kamala's chances, at least back then. That is obviously not the case now. So they have been waiting to come after Tulsi Gabbard for quite some time. Then she decided, I'm leaving the Democratic Party. I'm a registered independent. But then she goes over and gets a show on Fox News, etc. Honey, they were gonna come for you.
And that's really what it comes down to, and why they have to be stopped.
They have
we
to
are
be
guaranteed
defunded.
the right to life,
be
liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I cannot be free. And you pointed to this. Yes, exactly. I cannot be free so long as my government is breathing down my neck and watching my every move.
Well, we got to go, but we're going to be following this closely, demanding that this be completely withdrawn, and whoever is responsible for this decision, and there's one person who made the decision, should be fired immediately. But this should never, ever happen in the United States of America.
To anyone.
Tulsi, no, to anybody.
Thank
but
you.
I think this is the tip of the iceberg, and I know Donald Trump is not surprised by any of this. Tulsi, thank you very much. So what?
Now, there's another clip I want to show you, too, where it's actually just Tulsi Gabbard speaking, and she goes a little bit more in detail. But I would say at this point, I know she's blaming the Biden-Harris administration, but I think this goes all the way back to Hillary Clinton. I really do. That is one vindictive woman. This clip here, I want you to see. Shout out to Hotspot. Tulsi Gabbard says she is pursuing legal action against the Biden-Harris administration for placing her on the domestic terrorist watch list. And I say this too because I kind of feel like when she went after Kamala Harris' record, as she should have on that debate stage, I feel like Kamala Harris has basically just been waiting all these years to she was like, obviously, again, like Denzel's character in Training Day. Oh, you motherfuckers. That was Kamala was waiting. She was waiting in the wings. She was rubbing her hands and she was just like, oh, just wait for it, Tulsi. Just wait. But I wouldn't be surprised if Hillary Clinton was the one to initiate it. This has Clinton-esque vibes.
The closest word that I could think of that can begin to describe what I felt and what I feel in learning that actually, according to these whistleblowers, that I am on this Quiet Skies list, that my own government, my president, my commander-in-chief is targeting me as a potential domestic terrorist. The closest word that comes to mind is a complete sense of betrayal. And it's betrayal because I, like so many Americans, enlisted because of the Islamist terrorist attacks on 9/11, enlisted to serve in our country's military, to ensure the safety, security, and freedom of the American people, to go after and defeat and destroy those Islamist terrorists who continue to pose the greatest short and long-term threat to us, to our security, and to our freedom. And so now, after serving over 21 years and continuing to serve in our nation's military, my own government has labeled and is targeting me directly now as a domestic terrorist, as they are many others. I'm not alone in that.
Let me just say something.
Of course.
Let me just say something really quick. Just because you're still active duty in the military doesn't mean they can't come after you. They've been known to do this before. So just because you're in the armed forces doesn't mean they're not going to come after you. But Tulsi, they watching you. And they've been watching you for quite some time. They were just waiting for the right time to strike. And I'll tell you, if she does think it's the Biden-Harris administration, I'll say this. They're probably sitting back there and Kamala's probably like, you're not going to mess with I'm sorry. I'm in a silly mood. Kamala's sitting back there and she's like, you're not going to mess this up for me again this time. Kamala's like, you are not going to mess this up for me again this time.
Of course, this list is not being made public, but we can look to what the Biden-Harris administration has done in multiple cases of how they have There have been leaked conversations, leaked files, leaked documents, and even statements they've made in public saying that this threat of domestic terrorism and extremism is so great, and often very likely it is those in the military or military veterans who are these potential threats here at home. It is more than a slap in the face. It's more than a punch in the gut. It is a complete betrayal coming from our own government that they are using our taxpayer dollars, our resources. They're using people like the air marshals as weapons and pawns to target their political opponents. And that's really what this is all about.
Tulsi, honey, you're not special. You are not special just because you are in the military. That means nothing to listen. You right now are a tool that the U.S. government can use as a soldier. You are a tool that they can use when need be. That does not mean that you are above reproach. That does not mean that they will not target you, that they will not come after you. So it seems like she was somewhat surprised by this. And that's why I'm just I'm kind of taken aback. Like, really, Tulsi? After everything that you've seen happen politically, you're surprised that you are being targeted?
As a person, I feel, not only for myself, but for my brothers and sisters in uniform, for those who have literally put their lives on the line to go after and defeat those terrorists who attacked us on 9/11, those who continue to pose a threat to us today, and all of that, to have our own government come and point and set their sights on us and set their targets on us.
No, not set their targets on us. No, us is you. They setting their target on you. No, us. There's no us in this situation. They're looking at you and coming after you. And just because you decided to join the army after 9/11 to go fight for your country, that does not mean the U.S. government owes you a damn thing, okay? Talk to the soldiers who fought in Vietnam and came back to the U.S. and couldn't get a job. Talk to the veterans who went to Afghanistan, the other veterans who went to Iraq and came back here and had PTSD and couldn't get the help that they needed from the VA and ended up on the streets. Talk to those people. Okay, I come from a military family. So the government not supporting you and not helping you after you served your country for all those years, that is not surprising to me. And if Tulsi Gabbard would have been paying attention to some of the things that some of these soldiers were complaining about, especially when we talk about benefits after they have served their country, she would have known that there are all these homeless veterans out on the street. She would have known that the VA has left a lot of these soldiers behind, a lot of these people behind, whether they have mental health issues, physical issues, even when it comes to housing. And people wonder why there's so many veterans sleeping on the street. But Tulsi didn't take into consideration that she was getting a certain type of treatment that average veterans were not getting because she was a congresswoman. And then she went from being a congresswoman to you might be tapped to run for president. And then she went from being a presidential candidate to moving over to Fox News and all that jazz. So now she knows that the same treatment that she's getting from the U.S. government about them not caring that you fought for your country, that is the same way they've treated the everyday soldiers who fought for their country. They don't give a damn. They got what they needed from you, and that's a done deal, boo. That's all they care about. That's it. And I think Tulsi thinks that because she signed up with the military and she decided to go fight these wars and she decided to fight for her country, that her government in turn owed her something. But in the United States, one of the things I can tell you for those of us who were raised here in the United States, you learn that the government don't really owe you shit. There's more they should do for us, but it's not guaranteed. And they don't make you feel bad about the fact, or they don't make themselves feel bad about the fact that they're not doing anything for you in return. They do not care. You know, so I don't know what she was expecting to happen here, especially since you sat there on TV, Tulsi Gabbard, and you came after those students and you came after all the people. You smeared all those people, calling them anti-Semitic because they were, you know, cheering for Palestine and asking for a genocide to stop. And you sat up there and you clapped and you tap danced for Israel and you called, you know, all these people radical Islamists and all that stuff. And who does the government decide to put on a domestic terrorist watch list? You.
Saying that, no, actually, we are the domestic terrorists. Why? Of course, there's no explanation given, which is why we are taking legal recourse, why I'm so grateful for these whistleblowers and having the courage to stand up and present the evidence and proof, because you know, these secret lists, there are many of them. Quiet Skies is one of them. There are others that have occurred ever since 9/11 with the Patriot Act, weaponizing these institutions against Americans. All of these secret lists, there's no recourse. There's no way to know truly if you're on the list, how to get off the list, why you're on the list, why my own government is seeing me as a domestic terrorist. I can't tell you why, but I can make some assumptions based on the record of this administration, that this is yet another tool they are using against their political opponents. Yeah. Obviously, I've been very outspoken about the dangers of the Biden-Harris administration to our democracy and to our freedom and to our national security.
Yeah, but you're not the only person that has been vocal about that. That's the other thing. If that were the case, then I could understand. But there have been numerous people that have been outspoken about that particular issue, and they weren't put on the domestic terrorist watch list. So this is not, I don't want people to hear this and just assume that Tulsi Gabbard is the only one, you know, that this is like some special case or whatever. Other people have been making those same statements, some going a little bit even deeper than that, right? And they didn't put them on a list.
And this is what happens as a result.
Yeah. So it's wild and crazy out here in these streets, guys. It's wild and crazy out here in these streets. Tulsi Gabbard changed a lot from the years when I remember when she was in Congress and then when she was running for president. And I knew people that were Tulsi supporters back then. And even they'll tell you, they're just like, it's crazy, like how she flipped. She basically became an opportunist. But I think the lesson to learn from this story is that sometimes becoming an opportunist doesn't really benefit you in the end, because they still targeted her in the end anyway. Well, anyway, she is trying to file a lawsuit against the Biden-Harris administration because she was placed on that list. But I'll be honest with you guys, I don't think it's really going to go anywhere. I mean, she can file the lawsuit, yes, but I don't think that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are going to be held accountable, even if that is true. We don't know.